You'll be shocked, but a real king is involved in professional drifting. I'm talking about Arkady Tsaregradtsev, one of the strongest athletes in the world. And in this video, you'll learn how Arkasha got into motorsport, why he was nicknamed the King or the Tsar, who came out as the winner in the confrontation between Tsaregradtsev and Goichi, and how to achieve recognition on the world stage. And at the end, you'll learn many new facts about his cars. Enjoy watching! So, I promised you a video about Arkady Tsaregradtsev, didn't I? The time for that has come. But first, let's figure out who this king of yours is. Arkasha was born on December 5th, 1982, in Krasnoyarsk. He has been passionate about cars since childhood, which is why he got into motorsport. But the most notable thing is that Tsaregradtsev essentially created the drift culture in Russia. And I'll tell you more about that a bit later. Arkady's interest in racing and motorsport began after the release of the famous movie Fast and Furious. I think a huge number of young people fell in love with racing thanks to it.
You know what DK stands for?
Donkey Kong?
Drift King.
Drift? What do you mean, drift?
Still need a dictionary?
And initially, Tsar's parents didn't really like their son's new hobby. Why? Imagine your child excelling in school, getting the highest grades, and then dropping to average grades after the 5th grade. And at 16, Tsaregradtsev even took his father's car, a Moskvich 412, to ride on it. Not only was it essentially against the law, and if the young Arkasha was caught by the police, he could have been sent to jail or fined heavily, but he also drove it in a very strange way. How so? Well, for example, the young racer left to send the old Moskvich into a skid. At first, he wasn't very successful at it, and the car often ended up on the curbs, suffering heavily as the result. So, Tsar's parents often scolded him for such a hobby. Also, in winter, Arkasha drove on summer tires, just on that Moskvich. According to him, he was trying to feel the car even better. And, getting ahead of myself, it helped him a lot. Later, the Tsar switched to a Vaz car, and after that, he even bought himself a Japanese car. You'll learn about it a bit later too. And what happened to the Moskvich? It was stolen by junkies, crashed, and then everything poorly attached to it was stolen from there. So when Arkasha found his car, there was essentially nothing left of it. After school, Tsaregradtsev went to university. He had to study at the Metallurgical University. And, as you might have guessed, Arkasha didn't really like studying there. He preferred working with cars. And he didn't want to work for the man, because even in the 9th grade, he was selling discs at the flea market, where he felt the taste of entrepreneurial activity. After studying for a couple of years at that university, he transferred to another one, specializing in aviation. But those skills didn't come in handy for him in the future. After working at the flea market, Arkasha decided to work for a company that imported Japanese cars. And that's when he bought his first foreign car. It was a Honda Integra. After that came the Subaru Forester, and then the Mazda RX-7. All this was in the early 2000s, when the popularity of the motorsport was just growing. That's when he met Goichi. And I wanna say, this meeting was fateful. It was with Georgy Chevchan, who already has an episode on the channel, that they started organizing the first drifting competitions. Here, I would like to note that Arkasha had long been trying to organize various events. For example, he was interested in working as a DJ, but nothing good came out of it. But organizing races, bringing equipment there, inviting musicians, and doing all this well, he did it quite successful. In fact, all these organizational skills helped him a lot in the future. Tsar and Goichi literally gave birth to drifting in Russia. After all, in 2008, when they just met, there were simply no good drifting events. That's when the young racers decided to create something of their own. The first such event was the Drift Battle. They were held on a simple concrete platform, and there was literally nothing better than this competition. However, in those years, drifting didn't look as spectacular as it does now. The cars were slow and low-powered, and the pilots didn't really know what drifting was. So both Arkasha and Goichi didn't participate in them, but only organized them. This moment becomes the starting point for one of the most famous racing series in the world. And what amazes me is that it was Tsaregradtsev who became the main driving force behind the progress.
Всем привет! С вами Arkady Tsaregradtsev, самый мощный в мире!
If it weren't for him, today drifting would only be in Japan and some European countries. After all, in 2009, Tsar managed to negotiate with the management of the new racing track, Krasное Кольцо, meaning the Red Ring, about holding the drift battle. That's when the first drift races were held. I also want to note something else. Red Ring was initially built for ordinary circuit races. More famous racers were supposed to race there in powerful cars, not street drivers who just put their cars sideways. So when Arkasha came to the management of Red Ring with a proposal to hold the drift battle, they were skeptical. Fortunately, they agreed in the end. And this decision helped both Arkasha personally and all drifters in the world immensely. After conducting a series of drift battles, which began to gain popularity, the management of the racing track realized that these competitions were a very promising endeavor. And they also saw that Tsaregradtsev had amazing organizational skills. So, in 2010, Arkady became the new director of this very track. But don't think that Arkasha was only involved in organization. As he himself noted, at first he really liked all this. But over time, he realized that he was missing out on something cool. After all, he himself was quite good at racing and could even compete with Goichi. And Georgi at that time was already actively participating in drift battle. And after Goichi became the champion in 2011, a very significant event happens. But before that, I would like to note that Arkady, during his work at the Red Ring, met Anatoly Zarubin. And this is another major event in the world of drifting. Why? Because Zarubin has become one of the best journalists in the world of racing. His videos, which vividly and in detail described what was happening at drift competitions, now gather millions of views. And Arkasha became one of the main faces on his channel. And it was Zarubin who showed millions of people around the world all the beauty of drift races. So, what's the point of all this? One of the first releases of Anatoly's channel was a video about the preparation of a new car for the Tsar. It was the famous Nissan Skyline 32. And the most important thing is that in this release, the Tsaregradtsev threw a direct challenge to Goichi. After this event, Georgi also filmed a video together with Zarubin, where he accepts the challenge. And thus began the most famous confrontation among Russian drift racers. How did that confrontation end? I'll tell you. It's still going on. Yes, for almost 12 years now, Arkasha and Goichi have been competing with each other. And this is easily traced in the releases that came out of Zarubin's channel. Well, in the distant 2012, when their rivalry was just beginning to be known, Goichi won the drift battle season. Arkasha was second at that time. Why did this confrontation become iconic? Because Arkady and Georgi were the best drifters at that time. There was no such competition, and most likely, this was because the competitions were held locally at the Red Ring in Krasnoyarsk. Only a few racers from other regions dared to participate in the competitions, although drifting was becoming more and more popular, and this needed to be addressed. The famous drift battle lasted until 2013. By the way, Arkasha won that season. And then the Russian Drift Series appeared. Those same competitions where some of the best racers from around the world participate. And a huge contribution to the organization of these events was made by Arkady. Competitions began to be held on different tracks across the country. So now the drift culture has started to develop in all regions. And finally, competition began to appear. Because until about 2015, only Tsar and Goichi were contenders for the podium. But the most significant for the Russian Drift Series can be considered 2013 and 2014. Why? Well, it's simple. Because it was then that Arkasha and Goichi went to Japan, the birthplace of drifting. There, they participated in the most prestigious competitions in the world. The event was called D1 Grand Prix. And this event literally exploded the internet. Everywhere they talked about how Russian racers managed to get to these prestigious competitions. True, then few could have thought that Arkasha and Goichi would make any competition. But how wrong they were. Although Arkasha and Goichi were invited to Japan for the competitions, no one believed in them at all. And I remember those times perfectly well. At home, they said that the guys would not be able to compete with racers who had been drifting for decades. And in the land of the rising sun, Russian drifters were treated very skeptically. In 2013, Goichi participated in his own car. Arkasha went there as a part of a team. But even this was a significant moment for the athlete. Here, I would like to digress a bit and tell you how drifting competitions are held. First comes the qualifying stage. Drivers go through the track alone, and a special telemetry system evaluates how they did it. Based on this data, athletes are given points, and all those who go further continue to compete in paired races. So, at D1 Grand Prix in 2013, Goichi was able to show an excellent level. During the qualifying rounds, Japanese commentators thought he was just another participant who would show mediocre drifting. But they were literally shocked by what they saw. After all, Goichi managed to break into the top 16 and provide excellent competition to other racers. So now everyone was talking about this guy, literally wherever possible. But this video is still about Arkasha. So the Tsar initially did not want to go to Japan. As he recalled, he was offered several times to go with Goichi just to watch, and then he was always doubtful whether he should go or not. But at one point, he woke up and realized that he was missing something important. So he decided to go to the competitions after all, and he didn't regret it. Because after D1 Grand Prix in 2013, he and Goichi were invited to the competitions every subsequent year. And Japanese racers began to participate in the Russian Drift Series, realizing that there was very good competition there. So, in 2014, the Tsar wins a stage in his native Siberia, and in the main competition of the year, called Super Drift Battle, he takes second place, losing to Goichi again. But the most indicative thing is that at the top 8 stage, he managed to pass the famous Japanese racer Hibino Tetsuya. In 2014, Arkasha takes part in D1 Grand Prix Prime Ring GP, and there he shows a great race against the multiple world champion Iyoshi Imamura. In 2015, he participates in rented cars in the same competitions, where he shows simply excellent results. But the most remarkable thing is that in 2017, when the first FIA Intercontinental Drifting Cup was held, Arkasha took second place. Yes, those very competitions where the best racers from all over the planet competed. By the way, in the following 2 years, Goichi took first place there. In general, I can confidently say that Tsaregradtsev is an excellent racer. By the way, what do you think Tsaregradtsev got his nickname Tsar for? Precisely because of the results he showed, and also thanks to his organizational skills, which gave birth to the famous Russian Drift Series. In general, Arkasha is one of the best racers on the planet, and it's time for me to tell you about his cars. One of the main racing cars which has been remembered by all motorsport enthusiasts for many years was the Nissan Skyline GT-R 32 and 34, and its characteristics are simply stunning. After all, the power of this car in its coolest setup reached thousands of horsepower. However, at the time when the Tsar raced on the GT-R, such a powerful engine was excessive, so it was limited to just 800 horsepower. Personally, I really like the design of the 34 Skyline, especially its rear part and left taillight. After all, the Tsar decided to stand out and made, it seemed from an ordinary taillight, a work of art. The racers who followed Tsaregradtsev could see a funny skull with red eyes in front of them. It's just genius. But most of all, I like his new racing car. It seems that Arkady adheres to the policy one brand for life. After all, now he still races on a Nissan, albeit a completely different model, Nissan 370Z. And its characteristics in the past season are also amazing, because the engine power is over 1000 horsepower. And this car has become the most powerful drift car in the world. But what impresses me the most is that there is so much power that in one of the races in Sochi, its tires literally caught fire. Fortunately, no one was hurt then, except for the body of the car. Do you like this car? In conclusion, I would like to share my thoughts with you. Personally, I root for Arkady. I really like his driving style and also what life values he has. Did you like the story of the Drift Tsar? Write in the comments who I should make the next video about. And thank you for watching.